Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 3 and we will be presenting on topic Ijara and hire purchase.
My name is Nabilah and I'm going to talk about definition and application of Ijara. Ijara is a bilateral contract involving transfer of the use of an asset for an agreed period for a consideration. It involves two parties, the lessor or muajir, who is the owner of the asset, and the lessee or mustajir, who use the asset. There are two types of Ijara. First, regular Ijara, where asset is not transferred to the lessee at the end of the lease term. The asset will be returned to the lessor when the periods end. In this kind of Ijara, the rental that are charged over the Ijara period are not sufficient to recover the full value of the asset. Second, Ijara wa iktina or financial lease. In this Ijara, ownership is passed to the lessee at the end of the lease term with or without additional payment. In a financial lease, the lessor amortizes the asset over the term of the lease, and at the end of the period, the asset will be transferred and sold to the lessee. So, how Ijara is applied? Ijara is constructed based on Sharia law, making it Sharia compliant instrument. For Ijara wa iktina, where the asset will be transferred to the lessee at the end of the period, there will be a separate sale agreement between lessee and lessor before ownership of the asset will be transferred. In Ijara, lessor bear all the risks because ownership is not transferred yet during the period. The lessee only bear usage-related risks and any dues for negligence or mismanagement. Usually, rental management is agreed in the lease based on the amount invested in the asset, the rental value of the asset, and the profit margin of the bank. Commencement of Ijara starts as soon as the asset is transferred to the lease.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad Shahi and today I'm going to explain about the examples of Ijara. Okay, there are two examples of Ijara, which is sukuk and house contract. For the first one, which is sukuk, is Ijara are securities representing the ownership of assets that are tied up to a lease contract. This means that sukuk using the Ijara contract can be traded in the market at a price determined by a market force. The second example of Ijara is house contract. Islamic bank purchasing a house for a customer and adding management costs. The customer then pays a rental fee until the total cost has been paid off, at which point the ownership of the asset is transferred to the customer. In the other words, the customer will own the house at the end of the contract.
Ijara. Hamza has always aspired to have his own apartment. He approaches the bank to help him finance the apartment. The bank agrees to purchase the apartment. The bank buys the apartment. Hamza signs an Ijara agreement with the bank, and the bank leases the apartment to Hamza for an agreed term. Hamza moves into the apartment. The lease rental is calculated by the bank as per the pre-agreed formula and communicated to Hamza ahead of the commencement of each lease period. Hamza pays the bank the lease rental for each period of the lease term as per the bank's notification. After the successful completion of the 20-year lease term and Hamza's meeting all agreement terms and conditions, the bank transfers the ownership of the apartment to Hamza as a gift or at a nominal price.
And now I will be presenting on the critiques on Ijara. The first critique would be less advanced IT system. The Ijara industry has been generally advancing at a much slower technological pace compared to the banking industry. As such, this industry can be said to be modernized but not revolutionized by technology. Thus, more advanced IT systems need to be infused into this industry to better address clients' needs. However, there have been some actions taken by this Ijara-based company where they created Ijara-centric software with the aim of taking this industry to the next level. The second critique on Ijara would be the emerging of new niches. So why would I say that this is a critique to Ijara industry? This is because as for now, there have been increases in the number of new niches. Thus, we can see that more specialized financing solution is needed. Given such financing requirement, leasing, such as Ijara, may be adapted to bridge the gap. However, most companies out here right now are only using a common type of Ijara, which is Ijara Muntahiyah Bitamlik or lease to own model. Thus, more creativity is required at this front in order to infuse the Ijara model into the new niches to accommodate with the emergence of these new niches. The third one would be the lack of expertise. Generally, in the leasing industry itself, there is a lack of caliber. However, specifically for Ijara, there have been, we can say that less people who are experienced enough to be teaching or to be looked up to in this industry. How can this actually happen? Maybe some of those professionals came from a conventional banking, where we know that conventional and Sharia compliant banking are different. Thus, there have been critiques on Ijara in regards of these 3 points that I have mentioned above. So now I will be presenting on the challenges in Ijara. As we all know, today's lease structure are mostly leverage driven. And what is leverage driven? It means that this leasing company must secure steady source of finance or funds in order to maintain the growth of the company. And this has become tricky for Ijara company. By what mean do I say it becomes tricky for them? As we all know that Ijara companies, specifically those who are operating within a conventional bank setting, has been come across some kind of something stopping them, because we know that for those who are in the Ijara industry, the source of finance for the Ijara must come from a Sharia compliant channel. Thus, this have actually limit the amount of fund that this Ijara company can actually ask from the conventional bank. And in order to solve the problem or the issue that has arrived, some Ijara company have been suggesting for this Ijara company to raise additional capital, to issue IPOs, to issue sukuk, or they can also obtain approval from the central bank to allow a conventional bank to extend the funds to this Ijara company within a Sharia compliant mode. Thus, this is how they tackle the challenges and the issue that they are facing in this Ijara industry. Okay, so now we're moving on to the second challenge, which is the best practice. As we all know, the leasing industry has existed for long enough to actually have its own best practice example. However, this has become a problem, I could say, to the Ijara industry, as it has not been used for that long compared to the conventional leasing. Thus, the best practice for Ijara have actually been borrowed from the conventional leasing. In reality, having best practice is a necessity for company to flourish, and for this Ijara company to grow more steady and to flourish, they would need to have their own best practice for this Ijara-based company. And for that, that could be one of the challenge, as they lack the best practice that is needed. However, there have been some steps or some initiatives taken by this company. For example, there was a company named Ijara Management Company who is operating in Bahrain. They have actually developed, because it's not completed yet, so we can say that they have developed some example of best practices of Ijara that can be looked out to other users in the Ijara industry. However, they believe that as Ijara is being widely used. For now, there will be a comprehensive best practice, and the best practice that those users in the Ijara industry can look upon to will actually emerge one day.
So for my part of presentation, I'm going to be talking about hire purchase. I'm going to start with the definition, which is on the left side of the slide. So hire purchase is an arrangement for buying assets where the buyer will make the initial down payment followed by the balance and also the interest, which will be paid in installment throughout the years. So there are some kind of assets that is considered as hire purchase assets, including cars, equipments, trucks and lorries. And for assets that is not qualified as hire purchase, such as manufacturing machinery, construction machinery and factory equipments, it will be treated as outright purchase, which is like a normal purchase and not hire purchase. Let's move to the first application, which is on the right side of the slide. The first application is the religious requirements. So for hire purchase, it does not follow any religious rulings, unlike Ijara, but it will follow the banking and finance law of the country. So in our case, it's Malaysia's laws. So let's move to the second application, which is purchase of the assets. So for hire purchase, the asset will be automatically transferred when the last installment is being paid. It is a little bit different with finance lease, which finance lease, the asset will be transferred when the lease period ends. So application number 3 is the rights and obligation. So in case of there is no insurance available, the obligations will be fully under hirer, so any losses or damages will be the responsibility of the hirer. But for in case of there is insurance available, it is also will be directly borne by the hirer. So application number 4 is the payment terms. As stated in the definition earlier, the payment will be consist of the principal and also the interest, which will be paid according to the agreed period by the hirer and the owner of the assets. And in any case of defaults in payment, the owner has the rights to seize the possession of the assets from the hirer. And the last application is the commencement of the hire purchase, which it will commence when the seller has acquired the asset by paying the manufacturer or the dealer.
Hi, my name is Aiza Farhani. I'm going to share with you the example of hire purchase. Mr. A, a purchaser, wanted to buy a car worth 60,000 ringgit, but Mr. A did not have 60,000 ringgit cash in hand. So, he entered into an agreement with a bank that initially he will pay 15,000 ringgit for the car. The remaining 45,000 ringgit will be paid by him 3 equal monthly installments of 15,000 ringgit along with the interest of 5%. The interest will be charged monthly on outstanding balance. As you can see on the calculation example, the outstanding balance is 45,000 ringgit. So, for the interest on the first installment is 5% from 45,000 ringgit, which is 2,250 ringgit. Same goes to the second and third installment. The interest will be decreased when the outstanding balance decreases. Mr. A has right to the asset just after paying the initial down payment amount. However, the ownership is not transferred until the last installment payment is paid. If Mr. A fails to pay the installment, the car will be taken back.
Hi, hello, I'm Atika and today I will talk about the disadvantage and critics of hire purchase. So as we all know, hire purchase will enable a person or a company to buy an asset without having to pay one big lump sum for that particular asset. So in the hire purchase finance, you will need to incur an ongoing fixed payment for each month. You will need to pay a fixed amount each month, and this will make your financial forecasting simpler. However, if you are unable to pay for that hire purchase payment for a long period of time, you having a financial difficulties, you went into bankruptcy, let's say, you will lose the hire purchase asset and it will damage your credit rating. Next, in the hire purchase finance, there is interest you will need to incur. You will need to pay an interest, and if the duration of the term is long, let's say 3 years, 5 years, or maybe 10 to 20 years, you will need to pay interest for that period of time. And the higher the longer the duration of the term, the higher the total amount of interest you will need to pay, and it will cost you a lot of money. So next is in the hire purchase finance, you will own the asset after your last installment. So within the duration of the term of the hire purchase, the lender of the hire purchase asset will have the right towards the hire purchase asset, as the asset is still technically owned by the lender. As I said earlier, the asset, you will own the asset after your last installment. So within the duration of the term, the lender can take back the asset whenever he or she wants. And if you breach the contracts and so on, he or she can take back the asset. Next is, if the duration of the term under the hire purchase is long, the asset you pay under the hire purchase the asset you pay under the hire purchase might have been depreciated a lot by the time you own the asset. This means, for example, you hire purchase, you buy a car under hire purchase for a period of 10 years. So after the 10 years hire purchase, you will own the car, right? But the value of the car will not be the same as the value it was 10 years ago. So that's it for the critics and the disadvantage of hire purchase. Thank you.